Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. In this video, we're going to be covering long run economic growth. Now guys, long run economic growth is also known as potential growth, and basically it represents an increase in the productive capacity of an economy. We call it long run economic growth because that is exactly what we're trying to represent. That first of all, growth that is happening over the long run, the growth that is happening in the long run, which causes ultimately results into an increase in the rise in productive capacity or productive potential in the economy, where the potential of an economy goes up to produce more goods and services. Now, there are two diagrams to represent long run economic growth. One is that you're going to be shifting your macro PPC, like I've done it over here. I've drawn a macro PPC representing consumer capital goods, and you shift your PPC outwards from PPC 1 to PPC 2, right? And then you are going to shift your long run aggregate supply curve. Now, you draw a classical long run aggregate supply curve where you shift it to the right, and the increase in real GDP from Y1 to Y2, basically I should write YFE1 to YFE2. Now this YFE1 to YFE2, that is increase in the full employment level of output, is representing basically increase in potential growth. But since the AD curve is intersecting the LRAS curve on both the LRAS curves, as in both the LRAS supply curves, so this is not only representing potential growth, but it is also representing actual growth, right? So guys, as far as this particular diagram is concerned, there is an increase in actual and potential growth both. So the movement from YFE1, the increase in YFE1 to YFE2 is not only representing an increase in potential growth, that is an increase in the full employment level of output, but also an increase in actual output as well, since the LRAS intersects the AD curve, right? Now guys, as far as your A-level syllabus is concerned, you need to know why long run economic growth arises. And remember that there are three reasons why it arises. First of all, whenever there's an increase in the quality of the factors of production, or there is an increase in quantity of factors of production. Or, I mean, this should be and an or, okay? Or you could say that if there is an increase in productive efficiency in the economy. So three reasons: an increase in quality of the factors of production, and or increase in quality of the factors of production, and or an increase in productive efficiency in the economy. When you say that increase in productive efficiency in the economy, we mean that the long run costs in the economy go down. The long run costs, right? As far as long run economic growth is concerned, you need to know what are the reasons for long run economic growth. And also, it's not just, you just don't need to mention those reasons, you need to analyze why this happens. So in the exam, don't just say that government spending on education would cause economic growth, long run economic growth, and would cause PPC to shift outwards. You need to explain how does that happen, and that is part of your analysis. And while analyzing it, you need to link it with, if the government spends more on education or infrastructure, what really happens to the factors of production, whether the quality goes up or the quantity goes up or the productive efficiency goes up. So either of the three reasons, you need to hit or target either of the three reasons for each of these factors, and that is exactly what examiners are looking for. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. So for example, the reasons why long run economic growth could arise is because of, let's say the government spends more on education. But what do you really mean by spending more on education? So you could give the example of, let's say, there's more spending on, let's say, apprenticeship schemes, or maybe adult retraining programs, right? Or maybe a lot of economists also argue that there could be reformation to the school curriculums as well. We've seen that the recent government of Pakistan has been trying to bring changes and improvements to the school curriculum in Pakistan moving forward. And remember that if these are successful, the impact would be that it is going to improve the skills of the workers of the labor force, and that will have an impact on the productivity, improvement in productivity of the labor force, which will actually increase the human capital. That's what you need to mention. So the stock of human capital goes up, and the impact is that this will ultimately reduce structural unemployment, because it would reduce immobility of labor, especially occupational immobility of labor, allowing the workers to, providing the skills of to the workers to sort of fill in the job vacancies that are available in the economy. And what that does is, like I said, you need to link it with the three reasons that I have mentioned above. What that does is that it basically increases the quality of the labor, and hence shifts the LRAS from LRAS1 to LRAS2, right? Guys, remember that this movement of the LRAS is representing the outward shift of the LRAS from LRAS1 to LRAS2. This movement from LRAS1 to LRAS2 is representing an increase in the full employment level of output. And this basically represents the maximum level of output that can be produced at sustainable levels, using all the resources at sustainable levels, right? Because you are drawing the classical LRAS diagram. A lot of students link it with spare capacity, but the spare capacity concept is a Keynes concept. You need to link that concept with the Keynesian LRAS curve. And as far as you're drawing this LRAS curve, and if you're drawing full employment level of output, if you're mentioning full employment level of output using the classical long run aggregate supply diagram, so the full employment level of output using the classical aggregate supply diagram is representing the maximum level of output, which is actually vertical, is representing the maximum level of output that an economy can produce using all its resources at sustainable levels, right? So basically, you need to understand that. Yeah, that's one thing. This, and if you are also drawing the aggregate demand curve, let's say, and if aggregate demand curve is intersecting both the LRAS curves, then this basically increase is also representing actual growth as well. So actual and potential growth both are arising at these two outcomes, right? Now, the second factor that you could actually mention while explaining the causes of long run economic growth is you could also talk about the size of the workforce as well. That maybe, the size of the workforce could go up if there is more immigration of people, immigration with an I, which is an inward migration of into the country of people of the working age who are willing and able to work in your country. So that is going to increase the quantity of the labor force, right? Shifting your LRAS from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. Then you could also talk about the second reason, that there is the government spends more on infrastructure. And infrastructure, you could talk about more on examples you could give is spending more on transport infrastructure, improving the roads, either upgrading the infrastructure or maybe spending on new infrastructure, improving roads, maybe building new roads, airports, ports, runways, train lines, railways, electrification, all of that. And what that does is that it reduces the cost of production for firms as the transportation cost goes down of goods and services around the country and internationally as well. And internationally, transportation becomes quicker as well and easier, and in fact, it becomes more efficient. And there's easier to access raw material for firms now, and that reduces the long run cost of production as well, which means that it increases productive efficiency over the economy, while at the same time it also boosts the competitiveness of the goods and services as well. That But again, since productive efficiency increases, that causes the LRAS to shift from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. Now, the entire explanation that I've given you is basically part of analysis. So, if you're just mentioning the fact that government expenditure on infrastructure would improve LRAS, that is just assessment objective 1. It is knowledge and understanding. You're just mentioning the thing. You're not analyzing or creating a chain of analysis as to how spending on infrastructure is linked with an outward shift in your LRAS curve, right? Moving forward, the government could also, and by the way, when the government spends more on infrastructure, you could also say that it increases the quality and the quantity of the capital stock in the economy. We have labor stock, as in the stock of labor, because labor and capital both are factors of production, essential, most important factors of production, you could say. So infrastructure improvements and spending or building new infrastructure increases the quantity and the quality of the capital stock of the economy. When you're building more, let's say, new schools and hospitals and railway lines and all of that, or electricity infrastructure as well, like building electricity grids and all. So this will increase the LRAS and thus also boost the productive potential of the economy as well. Now, the third reason that you could talk about is subsidies or tax allowances to increase incentive for firms to invest. Now, there is a big mistake students make over here. They think that subsidies and tax allowances are given to reduce the cost of production, because that is a different thing. That are subsidies to reduce the firm's cost of production. Here we are giving them subsidies so that they could invest that money on research and development and capital goods, right? So these are two different things. Here the subsidy is for a different reason. So the government is offering subsidies or tax allowances to increase the incentive for the firms to sort of invest in new capital, upgrading machinery, building a new factory, improving technology, or let's say maybe engaging in more research and development or spending on innovation. All of this such investments basically improve both the quality and the quantity of the capital stock in the economy, and it also boost the productive efficiency in the economy, shifting the LRAS from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. The government could also basically, what the government could do is that it could, reduce the marginal rates of income taxes. And reducing the margin, we know that income taxes reduction would definitely increase the incentive to work harder, because now less income is taxed away, which means that it increases the productivity of labor as disposable incomes go up. And we also know that lower income, and the analysis is because this has to be connected somehow with how does this cause LRAS to shift to the right. That is the most important part. So if you're saying that the first reason how it connects to the LRAS thingy is that it improves the productivity of the labor. The second thing is that lower income taxes, guys, provides an incentive for those people who are of the working age and who are currently inactive in society, right? Maybe they're voluntarily unemployed and they are, or maybe they're just exited the labor force, um, to to sort of start working and take up whatever available jobs there are in the economy and sort of enter the labor force, right? Um, so in that case, what happens is that these factors, basically both of these reasons increase the quantity of the labor force as well and the quality of the labor force as well, and thus it shifts the LRAS from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. Now, as far as LRAS is concerned, a lot of students ask me that can we make the Keynesian LRAS to, does that represent an outward shift in the Keynesian LRAS? Does that represents potential growth? Yes, it does represent potential growth. Why not? That also represents potential growth. You could make that as well, but when you're just representing potential growth through an LRAS, so that is the classical version is more easier to make, right? So definitely this diagram from YFE1 to, let's say, YFE2, that is the full employment level of this movement, this increase is representing potential growth, right? Another thing that could cause an increase in your productive capacity of an economy is investment in capital goods by firms. Maybe they could be public sector firms or private sector firms. They invest more in capital goods like machinery, expanding factories, improvement in technology, um, improvement in research and development. So, part of this investment, we know that part of this investment it will improve the quality of the capital as well, which will, so not only would the quantity of capital would improve, but part of this investment would also go into improving the quality of the existing capital, which would definitely improve the which would reduce the long run cost of production for firms, improving productive efficiency throughout the economy. Again, increasing the quantity of the capital goods as well as improving productive efficiency, hence causing LRAS to shift outwards, right? Also, discovery of new resources, natural resources, that is land, raw materials, could increase productive efficiency in the economy, and also boosting competition. The government's coming up with policies to boost competition could, make the existing firms more efficient, and they could invest more in research and development and technology, hence reducing the long run cost of production for firms, again increasing LRAS. Now, guys, the fact that about discovery of natural resources and competition and investment capital, because I haven't written them down, but I'm just saying it. I haven't written them down because I need to connect the first 8 points with supply side policies. That is why I haven't written it down. But you write it down. But later on, if I say about supply side policies from 1 to 8, I am not including them, right? Because I'm going to be mentioning deliberate supply side policies by the government. But yeah, these three factors are also one of the factors that cause an outward shift in your LRAS. Now, guys, when you are mentioning an increase in your productive capacity of an economy, when you're saying that the potential to now grow at a faster rate has gone up, because the potential has gone up if long run economic growth has arisen, right? But remember that this does not automatically mean that the economy will actually grow at a faster rate, because a lot of students confuse this, because your when potential growth arises, so your potential output goes up, actual output does not goes up. Actual output will go up, but that will depend upon the size of the that would depend upon the aggregate demand in the economy. So at times you could say, let's suppose if this is your AD and this is your LRAS, and let's say that aggregate supply, your long run aggregate supply shifts outwards, but your potential output definitely has gone up. Let's say your YFE has gone up, definitely it has gone up, but actual output has not gone up. That is, the actual production of goods and services has not gone up, right? And the reason, a simple reason, is because you don't have enough aggregate demand in the economy to sort of materialize or internalize or that increase in productive capacity in the economy. You don't have enough AD in the economy to sort of make use of that increase in potential, right? So moving forward, so just how much important supply side policies are, long run supply side policies to improve your long run growth rates are. At the same time, demand side policies to improve or increase AD in the economy are equally important, because even if your LRAS goes up to a significant extent, but if there's less demand in the economy, then what's the point? So this is a good evaluation. Anyways, moving forward about corporation taxes, that if the government reduces corporation taxes, which are taxes on the firm's profits, it would increase the incentive for the firms to invest. And now they will have greater retained profits to fund the investments, which will involve spending on new capital, upgrading machinery, maybe building a new factory, improving technology, engaging in research and development, spending on innovation. Only these are investments, right? You don't count buying shares and depositing money in a bank as an investment. That's not investment in economics, right? So this sort of investment that we are talking about right now will improve both the quantity and the quality of the capital stock in the economy, which will improve the productive efficiency of the economy, right? Shifting LRAS to the right. Also, privatization of the of the national industries, public sector firms, would create a profit motive, in the industry, because you're giving the industry in the hands of the private sector, and that would result in more competition, and because private sector would run it with a profit motive, and since there is now a profit motive, so more firms will enter the market to make that profit, which will increase competition. And we know that competition and profit maximization objective together incentivizes maximum efficiencies in the economy, where firms sort of aim to lower their cost of production as much as possible so that they could charge lower prices than their rivals. And what this will do is that this is going to increase the productive efficiency in the economy, increasing LRAS from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. That's how privatization actually causes long run economic growth. Another thing that the government could actually do is deregulation, is another reason. Deregulation involves basically reducing the laws and laws that are, and the government imposed standards in the economy, such as reducing or abolishing environmental laws, health and safety laws, product safety laws, maternity, paternity laws, laws regarding working conditions, planning regulations, all of that. And this significantly reduces the cost of production for firms. At the same time, it just because these laws are legal, right? And these act as legal barriers to entry into a market, especially for small firms who lack funds. They're like, we need to comply with these strict laws, and our costs would go up. So better let's not enter that market, and probably enter some other market. So at the same time, what that does is that the legal barriers to entry, because of these laws, or that represent these laws, into the market, basically reduce, right? Which reduces cost and increases competition, again incentivizing maximum efficiency. Whenever you use the word reduces competition, you say it incentivizes maximum efficiency, as firms try to remain competitive, basically. And both these factors would again improve productive efficiency in the economy, again increasing your LRAS outwards, right? Another factor that you could talk about that causes long run potential growth is trade liberalization, which involves the removal of trade barriers such as tariffs and quotas, freeing up trade, promoting more trade, promoting global competition, let's say. And remember that global competition could be fierce and intense, and the fact that it is fierce and intense, or the fierce and the intense nature of that global competition from foreign overseas firms, which are more efficient, could force the producers to do whatever possibly they can, to compete. Otherwise, they know that they'll be left out and they need to shut down and pack up. So, competition and the profit maximization objective, again, like I'm going to repeat the same line, you link it with maximum efficiency. So, competition and profit maximization objective incentivizes maximum efficiency, where firms are aiming to lower their cost of production so that they could make more profits and charge lower prices than their rivals, because they need to be competitive, right? And this increases the productive efficiency in the economy, basically. So yeah, that are the reasons why. Again, investment in capital goods would also cause productive potential to go up. So these are the reasons why, basically, your product long run growth in the economy would go up. And remember that 1 to 8, as in points from 1 till 8 are also your supply side policies, which are divided between your interventionist and your market based supply side policies. Okay, guys, that's it for this video. I'll see you all around in the next video. Until then, take care.